Hey gang, Private Jack here, and here is installment number 14 in the series of how to convert XNA models for use in Source FilmMaker. So, where are we at now? We've used LoRa, we've exported a LoRa model, an XNA model into a format Blender can use. We brought that model into Blender and configured it for use as a valve source model. We've taken the textures from that XNA model and converted them to VTFs. We've written the VMTs, and now we are almost ready to compile the model. But before we can compile the model, what we have to do is we have to create the QC that's going to tell the compiler how to build the model. Now, I went looking for QC file examples for doing this, and what I came up with was I'm going into my SDK contents folder, and what I found here was in the model sources samples of QC files. Now let's go back to the Scout, scripts, and here is a sample of a QC file. This is the format used for compiling DMX type models. We're not doing that. We're going to compile an SMD type model. Now, QCs can be as simple or complex as you want to make them. This particular QC is building the player's HWM scope model, and what it does is it calls various routines. It says my materials live in this folder, this is the name of the model, but what I want you to do is I want you to include all these QC instructions. And if you get into the QC instructions for the Scout, this is what it builds. So this includes all the hitboxes, all the level of detail files. It includes shadow loads. And like I say, and then on top of that, what it does is it goes off and it calls other QC instruction files for building the model, which includes the hitboxes, the movements, and these call QCs that tell the model what to do. Like when you load the HWM model, it has a series of sequences with it, and basically what they are is the melee run, the crouch, all the rest of that junk. They are all QC files, and they tell the model what to do. And like I say, depending on the level of complexity of your model, well, the QCs can get quite extensive, and if you want to learn more on QCs, what I suggest you do is go and look them up on the Steam developer website. The one that we want to do is very basic and pretty simple, and what we're going to do is I will actually provide in the details here the sample QC for compiling this model, because I don't have time to take you through and teach you all the various commands and how to structure this thing. The way that I usually build a QC is I will have a source model decompiled, and I will use a QC that I had from that source and edit it to the point that I need it to make my new model. So that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in here to my XNA-SMD file where I compiled the Songbird, and I'm going to go in here and I'm going to grab the Songbird QC file, and I'm just going to put that into the Ralph folder. Open. Don't want to move it, I want to copy it. So Ralph is going to be a very simple model. There are going to be no flex animations. There's not going to be any animations whatsoever in this model. So it's just going to be something that we can use in a scene, and it'll have the ability of moving its head, its arms, its legs. We'll be able to make it walk, that kind of thing. So excuse me. I'm going to open up this QC, and we're going to build the QC for Ralph based on this model. So I need another copy of Notepad++, and will it do that for me? No. Okay, not a problem. Let's see, can we take that and create? No, it's just going to open up in there. Oh, window, file, new. Okay, we'll bounce back and forth. Not a biggie. Okay, so anyway, first line in the QC, we're going to tell the compiler where the SMD files live. So we're going to $ change directory to, and where's that Ralph folder? Right there. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to copy that address as text, and I'm going to drop it right here in quotation marks. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to name my model. So $ model name, and what I have to do is I have to tell it where in the models folder it's going to live. So Ralph \, and I'm just going to call him Ralph. ralph.mdl. Next thing, this scale allows me to rescale the model for various things, like basically if I want to make him a little doll type thing that the scout can pick up, I would probably make his scale 0.1. If I wanted him to be a giant, I would make the scale 10, that kind of thing. But it's not really required for what we need. Next thing I have to do is I have to tell the compiler what models we're going to use. So I'm going to copy this. And body, and this is the actual name of the SMD that we're going to use. So I need this opened. So that I can see the name of model, body, and it's going to be body.smd. Model. And I want to combine everything together so that it's just one model, so that the head doesn't float off into space and the eyes don't move out of place, so I'm going to combine them in the same build of the actual model. What I did was just copied that so it makes it easier to type. And head. Okay, next thing. Parameter pitch body, parameter pose, pitch body. We're going to add that as is, and we are going to grab the CD materials. And they are going to live in materials, models, Ralph. Next item up for bids. Well, if we had multiple textures for Ralph, like he was a blue or a red, that kind of thing, this is where we would identify those texture groups for the model. Down here, I'm going to grab this line, and this is a commented outline that says this model uses what? Body.vmt, so that I know what textures are being used. And what I can actually do here is I can say materials, model, Ralph, body.vmt, and it's just a reference to where the actual material. Oops, sorry. Control Z, home, copy. It's just a reference to what materials and where they live. And as I say, it's a commented out segment, so it's just a note to whoever happens to break the model apart and they want to know what textures were used. Okay, so 3 textures that we're going to use. And what else do we need? Well, this is where we would tell it if it had any type of attachments. The surface prop is going to be flesh, and that tells the model that if it gets hit, it's supposed to play a flesh sound. Illumination position, we'll throw that in just for good measure. Not really sure what it does. And then here we go. This is the sequence I told you about. Every model must have at least one sequence, and that's why we created the idle SMD. And that is basically the build of the QC file. So now we're going to file save this, save as, and we're going to put it in that same folder that we had the SMDs for Ralph in, and that was XNA Laura, or XNA SMD Ralph, this folder right here. And we're going to call that Ralph. Why doesn't that look right? Not QC. And there it is. That's our QC file. So with the QC file written, what we can do now is we can exit out of here, exit out of here, exit out of here, and get right into the GUI Studio. everything should be ready to rock and roll. So now we have to configure GUI Studio to work with building the model for Source FilmMaker. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up GUI Studio, and what we have to do, if this is the first time you've ever used GUI Studio, what we have to do is we have to configure the tool to work with source files. So the way that we do that is we go in here to configure, and we have to show it where the EP1 toolpath is. Okay, config EP1 toolpath. What we're going to do is we're going to go to computer, C, program files, x86 for our 64-bit guys, Steam apps, Steam apps, username, source SDK, bin, EP1, and we're going to select the bin folder. Say OK to that. Now we have to set up Orangebox toolpath, and we need to go to C, program files, C, computer, C, program files, x86 for us 64-bit guys, Steam apps, username, source SDK, bin, Orangebox, bin, and say OK to that. GUI Studio does not know about Source FilmMaker, so what we have to do is add it. And we're going to add it as an Orangebox type SDK. Simply due to the fact that most of the characters we're using are Orangebox, yada yada yada. It doesn't really matter. You could put it under episode 1, but I use Orangebox. What we have to do now is we have to click the Add button and point this thing to user mod. Okay, so C, program files, x86 for us 64-bit guys, Steam apps, common, source FilmMaker, game, user mod. And what we need to do is we need to click on the game info text file. That will add Source FilmMaker as the target mod. Getting into that, you may have to actually edit your game info text. So let's talk about that first. Okay, user mod, game info text. This is the file that tells Source FilmMaker what it is and all the rest of that good stuff. Where the search paths are for the content that you're using, and basically what tool environment it lives in. Now, for me, for some strange reason, I can't have my Steam app ID as 1840, which is the Steam app ID for Source FilmMaker. Every time I try to run my compiler, it crashes, saying that it can't find something and it refers to Steam app ID 1841. Now, maybe I can show you here. 40. File save. Okay. Because I closed down GUI Studio, I have to go back and I have to re-add Source FilmMaker. So I'm going to click Add, go to User Mod, double-click on the game info text file, and now it knows about it. So I'm going to load the QC for Ralph. File load QC, and I'm going to go back here to Desktop, XNA SMD, Ralph, and I'm going to load the Ralph QC. When I hit compile, I will probably end up with an error message. Compile. Right there. Mount file system 1841 failed. Doesn't know what it is. Failed error number 5. No CS online. Yada yada yada. Okay. If you end up with this message, what you need to do is you need to edit your game info text file. And the edit is right here under File System, SteamApp ID. Change that to 41010. Then change the Tool App ID to 41010. File save the game info text file. This may work. If it doesn't, then what you need to do is you need to find out what will work, and just have a look at your list of game IDs that you have on your system. This one works for me. Now I'm going to reload the Ralph ID QC file, and I'm going to clear the log, and now all I have to do is click compile. It'll wing wong beat itself up, and then it will come back and it will say complete Ralph QC, or it will give you some error messages. And what you need to do is you need to go through and have a look. Okay, I've got a warning here. It's not an error, so it might work and it might not work. And what it's telling me is that those environmental masks and the normal masks are not included in my QC. Coming up here, no other warnings or messages. So now I'm going to load Source FilmMaker. And we'll see what happened. La da 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 da. Create, load a map. I'll load stage. Okay, now that stage is open, right-click in the animation set editor, load new model, or create animation set for new model, and we're going to look for Ralph. And look at that, there he is. Let's bring him into the scene. So I'm going to click on Ralph. I'm going to change to the motion editor, and I'm going to slide my default. Pull back. Ta-da! There's Ralph. Now, I'm going to blow up his little thing here, and remember I told you about boning the character back in the session where we boned him in Blender? Well, the left side of the body is known, and the right side of the body is not. So I could go back into Blender and I could re-edit all those bone names and make them known to SFM, and I would probably be able to use the rig biped simple on them. See if it'll load partially anyway. No. The reason why it doesn't load is simply due to the fact that there's too many unknowns and it can't find the right side of the body. But anyway, make a long story short, we've got hip movement, we've got shoulder movement, we've got knee movement, and everything is movable. Oh, I broke my arm. Okay, fingers. Fingers move. And posable. Like I say, we didn't add any flex animations. His pelvis is the root bone. He has a root transform that we can move around and place him on the floor and do all kinds of weird and wonderful things with him. And that's how you get an XNA model into Source FilmMaker. So with that, I'm going to kill off this tutorial series and let you guys go nuts. So have fun with it. Hope this tutorial has been useful and that people have actually learned something. Look forward to seeing, actually I might even go one step further. I may fix this model up and come back and actually show you guys how to upload these things to the workshop. And so stand by for video 15. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say Private Jack out.